£5,000 in cash to spend however you like. You'll also receive the very latest iPhone 16 and we'll send you on a shopping spree with £500 to spend in your favourite store. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more.
Whether it's breaking royal news,
Will, please bring us up to date.
or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons,
Very, very curious.
we bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation, isn't it?
Because
the failure is...
You're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back,
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
and we do not shy away from the difficult stuff.
Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood.
So join me on Jubes & Kerr weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, good afternoon. It's 1 o'clock on Sunday, the 9th of February, and this is the weekend on GB News. Thank you so much for your company today. Always appreciate it. Now, your headlines today. Labour's week goes from bad to worse as Sir Keir Starmer is forced to sack Health Minister Andrew Gwynne after reports emerged of him sending offensive and abusive messages. And could this be Nigel Farage's time to pounce? Well, now sources close to the Reform leader claim that he's prepared to work with Boris Johnson to defeat Labour. But is this a backfire waiting to happen? And Donald Trump, meanwhile, has come to the defence of Prince Harry, ruling out deporting the Duke of Sussex after he reportedly lied on his American visa application. The president, however, did have some fairly harsh words for Meghan. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. So, thank you so much for joining me on this lovely Sunday afternoon. I hope you're having a really chilled time out there. And looking forward to Valentine's Day, because it's coming up, isn't it? It's also my husband's birthday as well, so I better remember. Because this show is nothing without you and your views. So, everything we're talking about today, from Trump to Nigel to Farage to love, let me know your views on it, or anything you want to have a chat about Sunday afternoon. Who cares, frankly? So it's very easy to get involved at gbnews.com/your say and join in our conversation. Now, as it is the week of love, come on, you're going to get a card. Come on, stay with me on this one. We have a great panel for you. We have GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson, ta-da, and his very, very lovely, very long-suffering wife, political commentator Claire Pearsall. Thank you so much. Couldn't have a better couple for today. Now, before we get stuck into today's stories, though, let's get the news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Dawn, thank you. Good afternoon. It's just gone 1 o'clock. These are your headlines. The Prime Minister has sacked one of his health ministers over offensive comments he's reported to have made in a WhatsApp group. Andrew Gwynne has also been suspended as a member of the Labour Party and has since apologised for what he calls misjudged comments. It follows an expose by the Mail on Sunday claiming Mr Gwynne reportedly made anti-Semitic comments and joked about a pensioner constituent, saying he hoped she died before the next election. It's also alleged that he attacked members of his own party, including making racist slights towards Labour MP Diane Abbott and sexist comments towards Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. Meanwhile, Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook praised Sir Keir Starmer for acting decisively.
Comments made by Andrew Gwynne are completely unacceptable. That this is going to be a government that upholds the highest standards of conduct in public life. We're a government in service of working people, so we've taken decisive action to dismiss Andrew Gwynne as a minister, as is the case. There's a live investigation going on in terms of the Labour Party. Andrew Gwynne's been administratively suspended. He's lost the Labour whip. I don't know what was said in those WhatsApp groups. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment.
But Shadow Chancellor Alex Burkhart said Andrew Gwynne's comments just show Sir Keir Starmer hasn't got a hold of anti-Semitism within the Labour Party.
The worst thing that I've seen Mr Gwynne say on that group was that one gentleman was too Jewish. Now, Keir Starmer claims that he's gotten on top of this problem in the Labour Party, but he clearly hasn't. We need to know who else was on that group. Did they call Andrew Gwynne out when he said that? If not, what sanctions are going to be taken against them? You know, we need all of this out in the open as quickly as possible, because otherwise it's the same old Labour, same old anti-Semitism within the left in this country, and it shows that Labour hasn't changed at all.
In other news, the parents of 2 girls killed in the Southport knife attack say they're looking for light in the darkness. Speaking to the Sunday Times, 7-year-old Elsie Stankoom and 6-year-old BB King's families remembered their daughters as confident, happy and intelligent. They opened up about their children's funerals and the support from their communities in the months since that horrendous attack. Alistair Silva Aguiar also lost her life on that day. Prince Harry and Meghan cheered and clapped as the United Kingdom's team walked onto the stage for the opening ceremony of the Invictus Games. The couple arrived in Canada yesterday for the 7th edition of the Games that were established by Prince Harry back in 2014. Their appearance comes just hours after Donald Trump confirmed he won't move to deport the Duke of Sussex. Speaking in an interview, the US president said, "I'll leave him alone. He's got enough problems with his wife." Meanwhile, it's been reported Donald Trump has confirmed that he's talked with Vladimir Putin on the phone to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. According to the Telegraph newspaper, the US president said that he believes the Russian leader does care about the number of people being killed. Mr. Trump told the New York Post Putin wants to see people stop dying. In the interview, which the newspaper said took place on board Air Force One on Friday, Mr. Trump said that he better not say when asked how many times the 2 leaders have spoken, but he did confirm they maintain a good relationship. Warnings are continuing today over the potentially deadly cold snap hitting the UK. The Met Office says temperatures could plunge to -7 degrees in parts of the country, with areas set to be hit by snow and ice. The UK Health Security Agency issued yellow cold health alerts for East, North West Yorkshire and the Humber and the South East, which are in place until Tuesday. It means that vulnerable people, including the elderly or people with serious health conditions, may be at increased risk due to plunging temperatures. And Friends star David Schwimmer has called on ex-owner Elon Musk to remove Kanye West from the platform. It comes after West appeared to write a barrage of posts on his social media account, making offensive comments, including about Jewish people, and appeared to mock domestic violence. The actor, Mr. Schwimmer, took to Instagram to urge Mr. Musk to remove West from X because of his hate-filled, ignorant bile. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Dawn.
Oh dear, thank you very much, Sophia, and thank you for all your comments flooding into the newsroom already. And this is a very dark blue, by the way. It's not black. I'm not in mourning for Prince Harry not returning. And Nigel Nelson is none of the words you've called him already. He's a very nice man, honestly. OK, now let's get stuck into today's story, shall we? A new report has rocked the right wing of British politics, with Nigel Farage reportedly looking to make an alliance with Boris Johnson. The Mail on Sunday says that Farage's inner circle are considering a potential deal with a non-aggression pact, good luck with that one, across battleground constituencies. This is the most likely option. The most recent MRP poll had the Conservatives on 178 seats, Reform on 175 and Labour on 174. So if an election was called, that would be the result, meaning that if you put the two right-wing parties together, would be a mega party on the right, wouldn't it? Definitely defeating Labour, which surely is the point. Let's find out, shall we? Joining me now is Mark House, the chairman of Sutton Coldfield Reform UK. Mark, thank you very much for joining me today. Very intriguing story here. Now, we did try to talk to one of the very high-up people in Reform this morning, and I can't repeat what they actually said live on air. So what's your comments on this one?
Well, I'm not surprised they couldn't repeat it on air. I think the thing is, Dawn, first of all, it's the Daily Mail report. They're not really friends of Reform UK. And we saw back in, 2019 when we did a deal with, when we sort of stood candidates down for Boris Johnson to defeat Labour. And then Johnson obviously squandered an 80-seat majority with mass immigration, etc., etc. So, my own personal view would be that this would be a mistake. The vast majority of the Conservative MPs would probably be better forming an alliance with the Lib Dems rather than us, because that's typically where they tend to stand, in my view.
Ooh, so you think they're more, the current Conservative Party are more aligned to the Lib Dems than to Reform?
Well, yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. There are some Conservative MPs that we'd happily take. And would happily, if they decided to jump ship.
Like, go on, name a name.
Braverman.
Okay.
I'll take Suella Braverman, because Lee Anderson came across and he's proved to be very, very successful. If I talk more locally to here, I wouldn't take our MP, Andrew Mitchell, because, he definitely is more sort of aligned to Lib Dem policies, looking at some of the things that he's said and done in the past. It is the Daily... there's no real sort of substance to this report, really. It's sources say, etc., etc. So I'd be very surprised if there's a lot in this. Zia Youssef, our chairman, has been quite clear that there's going to be no deals with the Conservatives. We don't need deals with the Conservatives. We're forging ahead in the polls. The Conservatives are going backwards. Our membership's going up. The Conservative membership is going down. We're about to cross 200,000 members, which is phenomenal for a start-up almost party, Dawn.
No, absolutely. It is on a daily basis. Your ticker is going up. We all do monitor it. Now, this summons up the ghost of Boris Johnson as well. This story, doesn't it? Saying that if Boris Johnson came back, because the problem at the moment is the red wall, the infamous red wall, that sort of was won over by Boris Johnson and are turning against the Conservatives. They've lost all faith in Labour as well, so they are politically homeless at the moment. But this story mentions the holy, unholy alliance, depending how you want to phrase it, of Nigel Farage and Boris Johnson teaming up. How does that sound to you?
It doesn't sound very attractive to me, because I've got a long memory. I was one of the candidates stood down in 2019 for that deal. And I think even Nigel now would say that was, Nigel does say that was a mistake. I don't want to put words in his mouth, because he can say enough for himself, as you well know, Dawn.
Oh, yes.
But the reality is we did that in 2019. I was stood down at that time. So were a lot of very good reform candidates. And, you know, we saw what happened. Johnson squandered an 80-seat majority, and really it's his fault. And obviously the following, I lost count now, few prime ministers that came after him is the result. And we've seen the result. What's happened now, we've ended up with this atrocious Labour government. Yeah. So personally, I'd be against this plan, and I'm quite sure there's not a lot of substance to it, if I'm honest, Dawn.
OK, so Mark, all right, we've discounted Boris Johnson. OK, let's have a few more Tory names that you might be keen to have join reform. Okay. How about Kemi Badenoch?
No.
No?
No.
No?
No, because Kemi Badenoch has been on record to support you know, mass immigration in the past. It's one of our main policies. It would be very destructive to our party, our brand, to have Kemi Badenoch. We've seen actually that she's not made a very good fist of being leader of the opposition so far, missing quite a few open goals, really. You know, that we've seen in Prime Minister's questions, etc. So Kemi Badenoch, I'm afraid, Dawn, no.
OK, what about Robert Jenrick?
Well, Robert Jenrick, again, talks a good game. He talked a good game in the Conservative leadership election, and I think he was trying to sort of be maybe Farage light. And as a consequence, you know, the talk was good. But let's not forget he was in charge of immigration for a period of time under the last government when immigration went up significantly. So it's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk. And a lot of these Conservatives do that, Dawn, as you well know.
Well, this is the thing. I mean, everyone at the moment is saying, you know, regardless of what you think of Trump's politics in America, he is actually hitting the ground running. He's not just talking the talk, walking the walk, he's running. So reform, is that the plan? Should you get in power? And the way things are going at the moment, it does look like you're in with a shout. Is that your plan, to emulate what Trump's doing?
I think there's certain things that Trump's done that we would copy. You know, things like getting rid of, you know, some of the woke ideology, the DEI stuff. You know, I thought one of the pictures of the week last week was him signing the order that prevented men from competing in women's sports with all those, you know, young ladies behind him. I thought that was a great picture. I think some of those things are really good, but also about, you know, low taxation. You know, the low taxation is obviously one of our big standpoints. Obviously started the deportation of illegal immigrants, which is also something that we would do, as Rupert Lowe on your channel has said quite a few times. So yes, there are areas where we would copy Trump, I'm quite sure.
What about the green issues? I mean, would you sort of like, I mean, Trump's like, drill, baby, drill, let's just get on with that.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen already that the Ed Miliband's, net zero stuff, is costing a fortune. £22 billion on that carbon capture. You know, that's the same £22 billion that is the alleged black hole, which seems to come up every time that we sort of expose a Labour lie. But let's not forget, again, this goes back to the point at the start. You know, the Conservatives signed up to net zero in 2015 under Theresa May, did it in about half an hour, which I find really, really strange. So they're on board with net zero as well. We know that. And so, again, how we would, have any pact or merger when we're completely diametrically opposed on a key issue, really, there, Dawn.
Go on, the bottom line here, we're running out of time, unfortunately, but the bottom line is, right, OK, if, a gun to your head, you had to link it in with the Tories to prevent Labour winning again, would you do it?
Well, I think it's a hypothetical question, because I don't believe it's going to be necessary. Well, it's the answer you're going to get, Dawn, because there's no way I'm going to come on here and say that, we're going to team up with the Conservatives. That failed in 2019. It was a mistake. Once bitten, twice shy, I think, would be the motto. Okay. And therefore, I can't see it happening. We're on the march now. As I've said, our membership is going through the roof. The Conservative membership is dropping. I mentioned locally. You would be amazed at the number of Conservative supporters locally to me that are contacting me personally and saying they're jumping ship from the Conservatives. And remember, this is one of the most safest Conservative seats in the country. And if that's happening here, well, goodness knows what's happening across the rest of the country, Dawn.
And we'll wait and see. Mark Health, thank you very much for joining us. That's Mark, Chairman
No problem,
of
Dawn.
Sutton
Thank you for your
Coldfield
time.
Reform UK. Thank you very much, Mark. OK, let's see what my panel make of this one. We've got GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and political commentator Claire Pearsall. Claire, I'm going to come to you first because you are a Tory.
Yes.
One of the dying breed,
Yes.
by the sounds of it.
Still a card-carrying member of the Conservative Party. I don't see there's any merger on the cards at all. When you've got Reform going out there suggesting that they would take down the Tories at every single opportunity, why on earth would you then look to merge your parties together? And I think that the majority of the membership of the Conservative Party wouldn't necessarily support it. There will be some that wish the party to take on some of Reform's characteristics, but the majority won't.
Why wouldn't you personally?
Why wouldn't I? Because I'm a Conservative, I'm not a Reform member. I disagree with quite a lot of their policies. There are some that make sense, but I also think the setup of Reform, it's a limited company, it's not a political party. So unless you are going to give your members a say in how a party is run, then you're not.
So you have a problem with the Nigel Farage figurehead as sort of like, you know, he is the party?
Yeah, absolutely. You're talking more about personalities than you are about individual areas, and it's all coming down from the people at the top. And no, it's not something that I subscribe to.
OK, same question that I asked Mark just now. If you had to do it to prevent a Labour victory, would you?
No, I wouldn't. And I'll give you a straight answer on that one for a change. I wouldn't.
Well done.
Purely because I support the Conservative Party. If I wanted Reform to win, then I would join Reform, but I don't. So I don't see how you can put two parties together to get rid of Labour, and then what happens? You've got very different ideas coming up through the ranks. How are you going to square that off? Who's going to be in charge? How are you going to manage the different personalities? And you've got one party that wants to take you down. Why are you going to join them?
OK. And Nigel, very quickly, we would have left you, like, literally 60 seconds to say something crisp and sexy and full of impact.
OK, well, very unusually, I agree with Mark on Reform and I agree with Claire being a Tory on this one. It ain't going to happen. Politicians like to say that politics is about policy and that's what people care about, not about personalities. Rubbish. It's about personalities, and you would not get Boris Johnson and Nigel Farage in the same party because both of them have too big a personalities.
OK. Do you think Labour are worried by Reform, though?
Oh, yeah, definitely. Yeah. Oh, no, they're definitely. And then the polls are really serious that Reform is overtaking Labour, so Labour are concerned about it. I think when it comes to the general election, we'll be less concerned because I don't think Reform will be a party of government. It takes a new party about 10 years to be able to get the policies and the people in place to form a government. Voters will turn around and say, look, they may be OK on immigration, but they're not really a party that I want to run the country.
They've got 4 years.
4 years is not enough.
Politics is changing.
I don't think 4 years is enough. You've got to find the right candidates. It takes a while to do that. The right policies. You've got to employ a lot of policy wonks to get those right. Just look at the at Reform's contract with the people, its manifesto. So many holes in that, sort of more holes than a dartboard. And until you actually put that right, and it takes a long time to do it, Reform is not a party of government.
Right, yeah, manifestos are always absolutely 100% accurate and honest, aren't they? Yeah, never, ever told any porkies in any manifesto ever. OK, thank you. We have to move on, unfortunately. I'm Dawn Lees, and this is GB News. There's loads more coming up on today's show. You don't want to move, it's packed. Including Donald Trump's promise to Prince Harry that he won't be deported, despite allegedly lying on that visa application. All that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you very soon.
GB News Breakfast. Every day from 6 a.m.
Well, you know I like an auction.
Yes.
And I've bought some strange things at auction before. You have as well, haven't you, Eamon?
Yeah, well, Ellie would throw this in the bin that you're coming up with now.
How about this? Admiral Lord Nelson's hair.
No.
Cut. I mean, is this a bit spooky? Cut as he lay dying during the Battle of Trafalgar, so someone's gone, oh, we'll just have a little bit of that there. In 1805, is on sale in Jersey, and it's a little Cup, how much would you pay for the hair?
No, nothing. It would go in the bin, straight in the bin.
What, even? What? That's very disrespectful to the British culture and heritage.
I think it's disrespectful that he lay there dying and someone thought, we'll take a quick stick.
Well, maybe they just had, maybe they thought, you know, because there's obviously the famous painting, isn't there, of the Battle of Trafalgar. Maybe they thought, we'll give him a quick haircut, and then they kept their £15,000. 15 grand.
Where's the hair come from? What part of the body?
His head, Eamon.
Well, it could be his underarm. I don't know. You know, it depends.
Hold on, let me have a little look.
You would bid
very curly. I think it's his. I think it's his head. It's his head. What?
You would bid more for his head than say his underarm.
Well, I think so. Yeah, I would hope so. Yeah.
Or anywhere else.
I would hope so. A little less whiffy there, the head hair. And there it is. And it's in a little pot.
No.
And the only way you can probably find out is if you DNA test it, I guess. It's definitely his.
Whoever pays for that is bonkers.
Well,
that's creepy.
I was seriously tempted to make a bid for a toupee, not for me, but as worn by John Wayne.
John Wayne's wig.
Yeah.
Why?
Wow.
Why?
Well, why I didn't get it was my wife said to me, that is not coming into the house.
Well, she's right. She's right.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Join me, Nana Okoye, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Hope you're having a wonderful Sunday afternoon out there. Now, it's been another busy week for Donald Trump. It's fascinating, isn't it? After cancelling foreign aid, banning male athletes from the Olympics, from female Olympic Games, and revoking Joe Biden's security clearance. And having a go at straws as well. Remember, paper straws are now gone. Back to plastic. He's turned his attention to Prince Harry. Had to happen eventually, didn't it? Trump has declared he will not deport the Duke of Sussex, despite an ongoing case surrounding his immigration record. Harry allegedly lied on his application to emigrate to the States after he did experiment with several illegal substances as a teenager, and not just as a teenager, if I remember rightly. In any case, let's see what my panel... I'm not going to carry on and introduce them like that. It's Nigel and Claire. If you don't know by now, it's Nigel and Claire. One's a Tory, one's a Labour, they're married. Those dinner time discussions must be exciting, must they? Right, OK, let's start with you, because you only had 90 seconds.
I did.
I mean, you did a lot in 90 seconds, I know. But, I mean, Trump, he's hit the ground running.
And how?
Where do you want to start with it? I could always start with straws, actually. It's the easiest thing to understand.
Today's story is obviously Harry, the fact he won't deport him. Actually, it's quite sensible. Why get into a whole row about deporting a member of the royal family? Much easier to leave Harry where he is. If Harry did lie on his immigration form, then yes, under American law, he ought to be thrown out of the country. But it just seems to me, this is from Trump's point of view, why get into that hassle? The only thing is, he didn't really have to do the sort of nasty comment about Meghan at the end. He could have just said, well, I'm leaving Prince Harry where he is, and that's fine.
OK, just in case you have been living under a rock recently, this was Trump in an interview with an American magazine when he was talking about Harry and being deported back to the UK. His comment was basically, I've got no plans to deport Harry from the US over his immigration status because he's already got enough problems, basically, with his wife. I don't want to do that, Trump said on Friday. I'll leave Harry alone. He's got enough problems with his wife. She's terrible. Look, I'm sorry, it's misogynistic and it's nasty. But I did make
It's quite funny.
I'm sorry, it made me laugh. I'm sorry, ladies. It did, Claire.
Yeah, and I feel the same. I should be sort of, you shouldn't say that about women. It's all very misogynistic, but I found it quite funny. And I can see his point, and I think it's what the majority of people think. It's fine. He can leave Prince Harry there. I don't think we need him back in this country, so you can keep him. I think the better story is about the paper straws. And this is what we need in this country. I want more of that.
Keep it basic.
More plastic straws brought back. You can't have a drink through a paper straw. Prince Harry, yep, you can stay there. Yes, I think his wife is terrible. I think Donald Trump has pulled a blinder on this one.
Well, this is another chief executive order. I mean, that's all he's done, non-stop, but basically. Yeah. I mean, let's face it, they do go a bit limp, don't they?
Who does? Who goes a bit limp?
Claire, I just want to comment on that. No, I mean, let's face it.
You're talking about straws, aren't you?
I'm talking about paper straws.
Yeah.
They do go a bit limp.
Do we think straws are really the most important sort of political event of the...
No, but they're funny.
...of the last week? Well, I suppose they are.
Funny. It's important. You try drinking a milkshake.
I mean, certainly, I don't like paper straws because they go limp. So, yes, I prefer to have plastic straws. It seems a very minor thing to start getting too worked up about. I mean, at the moment, more importantly, is the way he's pulling out of climate change agreements and potentially heating up the planet because he's doing so.
Oh, here we go.
I knew you were going to say that.
But he is, though, isn't he?
Right, OK. Just because he said it's a load of nonsense, which I kind of agree with him, and he's going to bring back plastic straws, which just makes life easier for people, that isn't going to heat up the planet and suddenly everybody's going to burn.
No, but it's an example.
You have a drink
it's an example. I mean, more seriously, it's actually pulling out of the Paris Climate Change Agreement, that kind of thing.
What, so you want us all to have very expensive power, so essentially we're not going to be able to heat our
No,
homes.
but I want us to keep going in the right direction. And because the direction of the world is to go green, what we should be doing, certainly...
Have you spoken to China recently?
Is it?
Well, it is, isn't it? Yes, even China is actually talking... I mean, what they say is that a small change in China, because it's so big, is much better than a big change in a place like Britain.
So nobody's told Ed Miliband that, then? He wants to put windmills and solar panels across every bit of green space he can find.
No, not every bit of green space.
No, because the third runway at Heathrow is going to be fine. No windmills on that, even though he really didn't want it, did he?
No, they would get in the way of the planes coming down. But the direction of the world is going towards net zero. I don't think we're going to reach it because we keep going back on things. And what certainly this country should do is try and get in on the ground floor of the technology, so we sell green technology abroad rather than have to buy it in at a later date. That's why it's important. Now, Trump starts to change all that, starts changing the emphasis of the world where net zero becomes, well, it doesn't even look as though in his mind it actually exists.
To be fair, he didn't actually say that, did he?
No, he didn't. I mean, I think he's very sure on that idea. And I think the problem is it's all very well to have green technology. I'm not against having alternative...
Well, you are. We've got some coming on our doorstep, and you're hugely against it.
235 acres of farmland to be taken over. I'd much rather that be farmland than taken over by a solar farm, which is not going to power any local homes. So, yeah, of course I'm against it.
Yeah, well...
It's not going to make any benefit. It's going to make the area look horrendous. It's taking away farmland that's not going to come back into use. So all the sheep that are grazing there, all the crops...
But the farmer was selling the land anyway, so it wasn't going to be farmland.
Why was he selling the land, I wonder? Is that because he might have to pay
obviously...
I wonder why.
Well, I would imagine just for the money. Well, for the money, I would have thought. We will be going to a protest meeting next week about this, where I'll be in favour of this solar farm, and Claire will be against it.
Absolutely. It's not going to bring any benefit to anybody. They're going to sell the electricity to places like France. Now, if it was coming into the local area and it was going to make bills cheaper, I think you could possibly start to build a case for it. But 235 acres of absolute prime farmland is just going to be taken over battery storage units.
But you would object to it. You would object to it. Whatever. I mean, this is the problem that every time you try and build one of these things on someone's doorstep, and it so happens it's our doorstep, there's an objection to it. So this is the whole point about changing planning laws, so people can't object to these things the way they do.
So you just want to put any objection to one side, right? These people can't object.
I didn't go as far as say any objection. What I'm saying is that we make it easier to build things like the solar farm on our doorstep and do the same thing with other people's doorsteps.
Do you not consider there are way better places for it? Roofs.
Well, of course there are.
Supermarket roofs.
I'd love it to be built in Yorkshire. I'd rather it wasn't coming to where it is coming. But on the basis that it is coming to our area, and I believe that these things should be built, I don't feel I could actually object to it, but I would prefer it somewhere else.
It isn't coming to our area. There is a planning application that's being put in that has to go through due process, and that requires people.
At the moment, planning is being eased by the Labour government. So the likelihood is we'll get it.
And push it through.
Well, I shall be sunning myself down by the solar farm.
This debate will be continued live on Claire and Nigel's personal stream from their home tonight. Please do training, where you will not have a limp straw in your hand. Absolutely not. And you probably will. Anyway, I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GBNews, and there's loads more coming up on today's packed show, including, is the government's Equality Act actually hurting workplace diversity and protections? We get to the bottom of that next, but let's get the news first with Sophia Wenzer.
Dawn, thank you. Your headlines at 1:32. The Prime Minister has sacked one of his health ministers over offensive comments he's reported to have made in a WhatsApp group. Andrew Gwynne has also been suspended as a member of the Labour Party and has since apologised for what he calls misjudged comments. It follows an exposé by the Mail on Sunday claiming Mr Gwynne reportedly made anti-Semitic comments and joked about a pensioner constituent, saying he hoped she died before the next election. It's also alleged that he attacked members of his own party, including making racist slights towards Labour MP Diane Abbott and sexist comments towards Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. Meanwhile, Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook praised Sir Keir Starmer for acting decisively.
Comments made by Andrew Gwynne are completely unacceptable. That this is going to be a government that upholds the highest standards of conduct in public life. We're a government in service of working people, so we've taken decisive action to dismiss Andrew Gwynne as a minister, as is the case. There's a live investigation going on in terms of the Labour Party. Andrew Gwynne's been administratively suspended. He's lost the Labour whip. I don't know what was said in those WhatsApp groups. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment.
But Shadow Chancellor Alex Burkhardt said Andrew Gwynne's comments just show Sir Keir Starmer hasn't got a hold of anti-Semitism within the Labour Party.
The worst thing that I've seen Mr Gwynne say on that group was that one gentleman was too Jewish. Now, Keir Starmer claims that he's gotten on top of this problem in the Labour Party, but he clearly hasn't. We need to know who else was on that group. Did they call Andrew Gwynne out when he said that? If not, what sanctions are going to be taken against them? You know, we need all of this out in the open as quickly as possible, because otherwise it's the same old Labour, same old anti-Semitism within the left in this country, and you know, it shows that Labour hasn't changed at all.
In other news, Prince Harry and Meghan have cheered and clapped as United Kingdom's team walked onto the stage for the opening ceremony of the Invictus Games. The couple arrived in Canada yesterday for the 7th edition of the Games that were established by Prince Harry back in 2014. Their public appearance comes just hours after Donald Trump confirmed he won't move to deport the Duke of Sussex. Speaking in an interview, the US president said, "I'll leave him alone. He's got enough problems with his wife." And train passengers will face significant disruption today as Avanti West Coast managers stage a fresh strike over rest day working. Members of the Rail, Maritime and Transport Union will walk out today, significantly impacting services on one of the UK's busiest rail routes. Avanti West Coast strongly advises passengers to avoid travelling if possible. Meanwhile, a limited service will operate today between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Those are the latest GB News headlines. More in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. Some of us are still going to be hunting for that sunshine today, though there are a few glimmers for a lucky few of us. We've still got high pressure out towards Scandinavia that is feeding in this easterly wind across the UK, and because it's coming in from the North Sea, it's bringing in a lot of moisture and a lot of clouds. So particularly for eastern regions today, it is going to be widely cloudy, grey, dull and drab, unfortunately, with some outbreaks of rain that will be falling as snow potentially over some higher ground areas. If you are a little bit further towards the west, you've got a greater chance of seeing some sunshine today. So particularly areas of Cornwall, the outer city, potentially parts of Pembrokeshire as well, should see some brightness in there. But for a lot of central eastern areas of England and Wales, that rain will be pushing its way in. But actually for northwestern areas of Scotland, this is where we're going to see some of the brightest skies today. A really nice fine day to come here despite a little bit of a chill in the air. And it is going to be feeling quite cold underneath the cloud, and with the easterly wind starting to pick up in strength later on this afternoon and overnight, that is going to be adding a wind chill factor in there once again. That cloud, though, as it spreads its way in, will reduce the amount of frost for most of us, but particularly for northwestern Scotland, where we hold on to the clearer skies, temperatures will drop off a touch more here. We could get as low as -5, -6 degrees Celsius in the most sheltered rural areas. Maybe some icy stretches around where surfaces are still wet due to all these showers that aren't pushing their way in. And really throughout Monday, it is a very similar picture. Always cloudiest towards the east, those showers turning wintry over higher ground sites, particularly the Pennines tomorrow. But over towards the west, it will be a little bit drier and a little bit brighter as well. Once again, though, northwestern Scotland, the Highlands and the Outer Hebrides seeing the best day overall. Cold for most of us, though, 5-4 degrees Celsius as our top temperatures, and on that wind chill factor, it's going to be feeling more like freezing. And it's a picture we've got to get used to because it's going to stay that way throughout this week. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
down to earth,
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
and most importantly, honest,
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get the book thrown at them.
then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This is GB News, the People's Channel. This is Britain's newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hello, welcome back to the Weekend with me, Dawn Eastman. Just got to read this out. This is Tom, afternoon Tom, in relation to my wonderful panel today, which is Claire and Nigel. You know who they are, but I'm not going to bother telling you. Does GB News offer marriage counselling? Might be a good time to take it up, mightn't it? Any case, we digress. They are going to be having another ding-dong very soon. You can rest assured on that, because this is an interesting story for you. A new report from the Institute of Economic Affairs claims that stripping back aspects of the Equality Act will actually boost workplace diversity and employee protections. The report outlines several key suggestions, which include abolishing the concept of indirect discrimination in the UK, stop outlawing different pay for different work, and repealing the public sector equality duty. But can the government really improve diversity by basically getting down or getting rid of the diversity, equality and inclusion stuff? Let's find out, shall we? Joining now is one of the authors of the report, Daniel Freeman, who is also the managing editor at the Institute for Economic Affairs. Now, this is an exclusive. Thank you very much for coming in, Daniel. Good to see you. Now, tell me in a nutshell what this is about.
So, part of the reason why we decided to write this report is endlessly politicians are complaining about the consequences of the Equality Act and discrimination legislation. So how many times have you had politicians come on here and say, oh, it's terrible how many diversity managers the NHS is having to employ, or this decision or that decision it makes no sense. What we're saying is all of this comes from law and from legislation that can be modified. So what we do in the report is we go through the history of anti-discrimination legislation in Britain that starts in the 1960s to tackle, very real examples of racial discrimination. But at that stage, it's very focused on what we'd call direct discrimination. So you have a job, you say, we are not taking X ethnic group, or we are not taking Y ethnic group, or in housing or some area like that. What has increasingly emerged and become much more important is this idea of indirect discrimination. So this isn't discrimination where you're not necessarily trying to discriminate, or you're not preventing people from doing one job or another, but you have policies that might advantage one group over another, and it can lead to some really perverse outcomes if you go down the line that every example of this must be stopped. So I'll give you one example. Last year, the British Transport Police got rid of yearly fitness tests for their officers. And they said that, well, we're doing this because we found that 98% of men were passing these fitness tests, but only 92% of women were passing these fitness tests. Therefore, to avoid any claim of indirect discrimination, we are going to allow all of these formerly unfit officers back onto the beat. Which
doesn't help anyone.
Well, yeah, not least the officers themselves. Yeah. I'm not sure I'd particularly want to be out, on Britain's railways if I'm actually not capable of doing a bleep test.
So are we saying that we really need to stop positive discrimination?
Well, that is another area that was changed with the 2010 Equality Act. It brought in this notion of positive action. And that previously hadn't been an element in British law. If you go back to the 1970s, you do have this notion of positive action, but it only refers to training schemes, things like that. And as far as we're concerned, that's not an issue. But when it comes to employment and promotion decisions, you should be making them exclusively on merit.
OK, so now, this is your report. It's exclusive on GB News today. And are you going to give this to the government and see what reaction you get?
Oh, yeah. I mean, we'll give it to anyone who's interested in it. And, on one level, the current government haven't made particularly good sort of sounds on this. They've proposed introducing a Race Equality Act, which would introduce some of the elements on gender discrimination, such as mandatory reporting on pay gaps also to include ethnicity, which would be a complete nightmare because you have lots of you have a lot more ethnicities than you do genders. So that's encouraging, but, there are some grounds for hope. The government do seem to be pushing in on a sort of deregulatory agenda. They are aware that there are some areas like environmental legislation where, environmental regulation where, it sounds very good on paper, but in reality, you end up with £100 million back caves. And it's very much like that with anti-discrimination legislation and the Equality Act. A lot of it sounds good on paper, but then when it filters through into the public sector, you get really perverse outcomes.
So are we talking a bit like Trump in America, that the best person for the job should get the job regardless of their sex, their race, their religion, their disabilities?
Yeah, absolutely. And, I think that to a large extent does happen in the private sector because you do have a profit motive.
Yeah.
That it doesn't matter how woke you are if you're not actually making money. In the public sector, you don't necessarily have those signals. So in the public sector, in Quangos, you probably do need government to sort of step in and say, look, focus on merit, focus on individuals, not on identity or group outcomes.
OK, very interesting stuff. Unfortunately, we haven't got time to bring the panel on this, but we will let them have a say later because we can't shut them up, basically. Daniel Freeman, thank you very much for coming in. That report will be available widely tomorrow. It's a GB News exclusive for now. You can find more detail on the website about that. But what do you make of it? gbnews.com/your say. Should the best person simply get the job rather than ticking boxes? What do you reckon? But for now, we're going to let you escape for a bit, because if you're after some winter sun, and who isn't, here is the forecast for some of those top European holiday destinations.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
You may well be thinking of escaping the cloudy skies of the UK and heading to the Mediterranean, though it is rather mixed out there at the moment. There are some heavy showers and thunderstorms across parts of Malta and Sicily, though recent snowfall across the Alps should hopefully help with some skiing conditions. Perhaps the most settled conditions across parts of southern Iberia, Portugal and Spain, though there is some showery rain pushing into parts of Madeira as well. Generally, it is going to be the west that holds on to the most settled conditions during this week as well.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations forecast.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Now, we're going to introduce you to Liam Wildish. Liam, well, I'd like to think he's a friend of mine because I follow him on Instagram, on TikTok there as well.
You're a big fan, aren't you?
Big fan, because there's what he does. He's a cleaner. He cleans signs. But the thing is, he's not employed by councils or whatever. He does this voluntarily. And you sort of think to yourself, well, who cleans these signs? Why have these signs been allowed to get into this terrible state of disrepair and filthiness?
So basically, long story short, about 6 years ago, I used to be a window cleaner. In the community where I lived, I noticed all of the road signs were filthy, and I was perfectly equipped to clean them. So basically, I cleaned the road signs as a bit of a thank you to the community and sort of make a little bit of awareness of my window cleaning business at the time. Yeah. Sort of cleans up the area, makes the road safer, and that's kind of how that started. And people found it like a really satisfying sort of approach. So that sort of led on to today of a video in cleaning the dirty road signs and making sort of satisfying content with it as well.
What is the equipment? What have we got here?
So this is a water-fed pole system connected to a backpack, which is what feeds the water through the end of the brush there. It's perfectly equipped to basically remove this green dirty, it's like a mildew build-up that you get on the signs. Yeah. As you can see, this is like extremely effective at removing so.
So GB News viewers, if they spot a particularly grisly sign in their area, then they can get in touch.
They can do, yeah.
And Liam Wildish, the sign guy, can sort you out.
If you find Liam, the sign guy, online, drop me a message, let me know, and I'll add you to my list of places.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News.
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. Maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Now, let's talk about Meghan, shall we? Because she has caused a bit of a stir again, hasn't she? Despite being called out by the US president, he wasn't that nice about it. She's returned to the limelight after attending the opening ceremony of the Invictus Games with her husband, Harry. The couple watched from the stands as the UK's team entrance before the Duke of Sussex gave a speech calling on the competitors and spectators to defeat a moment of dignity and division in the world. I wonder who is having a go out there. But it was the body language. The way, I'm sorry, Meghan was all over Harry like a very bad rash. It was like they were on a first date. So what is going on here? Well, to tell us more is a body language expert, Judy James, to take us through the couple's look and how they were behaving. Judy, good to see you. Thank you very much for joining us today.
Hi.
Now, I mean, look, obviously the Invictus Games are amazing and Harry does an incredible job with them. No one's taking that away. But I must admit, I was watching the footage of them, or rather of Meghan. What did you make of her behaviour?
Well, it was Meghan the human limpet, wasn't it? I mean, she's never shy about doing PDAs with Harry, obviously. But I think this took it to a different level. And for me, Dawn, it kind of tied in with that social media post that she did the other day. And then if you watched her make a speech where she introduced Harry Invictus, she's kind of rebranding as this, it's sort of, oh gosh, social media teenager, less professional. She's giggling, she's squealing with excitement at things. I wasn't expecting to talk. She's very breathless. But then, as I say, the human limpet thing with Harry, it was as though she had to sit there with him and cling, not just cling onto his arm, she was holding his hand at the same time as well. She was gazing at him. She tilted her head onto his shoulder, like you say, as though they're on a date night. She looked like a cross between a woman on a date night and a mum going to her son's school open day. You know, it's proud mum or besotted wife on a date. Everything, she was taking photographs of him with her camera. She was doing that seal clapping that she does. And then there were these sort of wonderful looks of pride. I can't describe it. Her whole mouth sort of pinched together and puckered in a look of pride when his name was mentioned.
And how does Harry look during this?
Harry just looks like Harry. I mean, Harry looked either rather bashful. I mean, if we can see them here, you know, he's leaning in to listen, but he's got his son sort of scratching his mouth. I don't think that he was exactly too comfortable with these massively exaggerated, what are called overkill PDAs. At times he was leaning away from her slightly. He looked a lot happier when he was giving the sort of double thumbs up to the rest of the crowd and showboating on the stage, because I think, you know, he's very much with the people that he knows and loves, with all the sort of army people, etc. But he wasn't particularly joining in. I don't think you could. It was so overkill that, I mean, if he'd joined in, they'd have had to have got a room, I think. It would have been way too much.
And do you think, just very quickly, Judy, this is a happy marriage?
Oh, wow, Dawn, that's a big question, isn't it? How long have you got? 6 years doing newlywed justice should be ideal. I know with my partner, who I've been with for 45 years, if we started behaving like that, he would be thinking that I was up to something. But no, I think they have to be happy, and I think she wants to prove it to the world.
Judy, thank you very much. As body language expert Judy James there, thank you very much. I'm Dawn Neeson. This is GB News. Loads more coming up. You really don't want to go anywhere, but first, let's get the weather.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. This is your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. We are in a quite stagnant weather situation at the moment. High pressure that has set itself up across Scandinavia is essentially acting as a blocking system and leading to a very similar weather pattern day in, day out at the moment. It's an easterly wind that set itself up, and that is providing a lot of moisture and a lot of cloud feeding in from the North Sea, with some outbreaks of rain and showers around as well. Some wintry flakes falling for higher ground routes, particularly the Pennines and the Grampians. If you are further towards the west, there'll be a few clearer spells this evening and overnight, particularly for northwestern Scotland, where it will turn quite chilly, maybe as low as -5, -6 degrees Celsius, but underneath the cloud elsewhere. Temperatures will be holding up more around 3 to 4 degrees Celsius. Despite that very chilly start across northwestern Scotland on Monday, though, it is here where we're going to see the most lengthy spells of sunshine right throughout the day. Once again, for the Highlands, the Outer Hebrides, parts of Argyll and Bute, it is going to be quite a lovely, fine day. Elsewhere, cloud is going to be plaguing us, very grey and dull skies. Again, further outbreaks of rain and showers around, falling as snow once again, particularly for the Peak District and the Pennines. Tomorrow we could see a few centimetres building up during the day. We do then also have to factor in the strength of that easterly wind that will be increasing on Monday, so that's going to make it feel particularly cold. Very biting wind that, whilst temperatures on the thermometer will be around 5-6 degrees Celsius at best, it is actually going to feel more like freezing when you add on the strength of that wind, so certainly is a day to be wrapping up warm when you are outside. Generally, things stay very similar into the evening period, and actually that stagnant weather situation is going to continue for a good portion of this forthcoming week. So expect particularly eastern areas to be cloudier overall. Generally in the west, you've got a greater chance of seeing a touch more sunshine around, but temperatures still below average for the time of year. Bye-bye.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
We're doubling your chances to win in our latest Great British giveaway, with 2 fabulous prize bundles up for grabs. There's 2 lots of a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash. You'll also receive a brand new iPhone 16, along with £500 in shopping vouchers to spend at your favourite store. And the best news is 2 lucky winners are going to win. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. 1 entry costs £2 plus 1 standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus 1 standard network rate message. Go to gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Call 0903 681 3232. Calls cost £2 plus your network access charge, or post your name and number to GB11 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrants must be 18 or over. Lines close at 6 p.m. on the 7th of March. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Mornings don't have to be tiresome, especially if you have the right company.
Wake up to news as it happens, opinion and debate, and of course, a little bit of entertainment too.
Because when the kettle's on, we're on.
That's Breakfast on GB News, a show worth waking up for.
Every morning from 6 a.m.
Only on the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We'll spread the news, you spread the word.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there short and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
How has this whole experience left you in terms of financially and also mentally?
Thank you for asking the question, because the reality is that this has been devastating on a personal level, emotionally, financially. To have a reputation that you build up over decades and it can be demolished so quickly, that's exactly what's happened.
Good afternoon. It's just after 2 o'clock on Sunday, the 9th of February, and this is the weekend on GB News with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you so much for your company. Really, really love having you with me. Now, let's get your news headlines for you. Labour's week goes from bad to worse as Sir Keir Starmer is forced to sack Health Minister Andrew Gwynne after reports emerged of him sending offensive and abusive messages. And could this be Nigel Farage's time to pounce? Well, now sources close to the Reform leader claim that he's prepared to work with Boris Johnson to defeat Labour. But is this a backfire or waiting to happen? And Donald Trump, meanwhile, has come to the defence of Prince Harry, ruling out deporting the Duke of Sussex after he reportedly lied on his American visa application. The president, however, did have some really harsh words for Meghan. I'm Dawn Neeson, and this is The Weekend. So thank you so much for joining me on this Sunday afternoon. I hope you're having a wonderful, restful day out there. Feet up, cup of tea, maybe a glass of wine. It's a Sunday. Come on, you can chill. Because I want to hear from you, basically. I want you to join in the conversation because this show is all about what you think about what we're talking about and anything you want to chat about, to be honest. It's a Sunday afternoon. We're all relaxed about this. Very easy to get involved. gbnews.com/yoursay and join in our chat. Keeping me company this hour, and they are still talking to me, if not possibly one another, is GB News senior political commentator Nigel Nelson and political commentator Claire Pearsall. And very apt they are as well, because it is the week of love starting and they are married to each other. For now. Any case, before we get cracking on with our topics, let's get those news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Dawn, thank you. It's just gone 2 o'clock. These are your headlines. The Prime Minister has sacked one of his health ministers over offensive comments he's reported to have made in a WhatsApp group. Andrew Gwynne has also been suspended as a member of the Labour Party and has since apologised for what he calls misjudged comments. It follows an exposé by the Mail on Sunday claiming Mr Gwynne reportedly made anti-Semitic comments and joked about a pensioner constituent, saying he hoped she died before the next election. It's also alleged that he attacked members of his own party, including making racist slights towards Labour MP Diane Abbott and sexist comments towards Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. Meanwhile, Housing Minister Matthew Pennycook praised Sir Keir Starmer for acting decisively.
Comments made by Andrew Gwynne are completely unacceptable. That this is going to be a government that upholds the highest standards of conduct in public life. We're a government in service of working people, so we've taken decisive action to dismiss Andrew Gwynne as a minister, as is the case. There's a live investigation going on in terms of the Labour Party. Andrew Gwynne's been administratively suspended. He's lost the Labour whip. I don't know what was said in those WhatsApp groups. It wouldn't be appropriate for me to comment.
Meanwhile, Shadow Chancellor Alex Burghardt said Andrew Gwynne's comments just show Sir Keir Starmer hasn't got a hold of anti-Semitism within the Labour Party.
The worst thing that I've seen Mr Gwynne say on that group was that one gentleman was too Jewish. Now, Keir Starmer claims that he's gotten on top of this problem in the Labour Party, but he clearly hasn't. We need to know who else was on that group. Did they call Andrew Gwynne out when he said that? If not, what sanctions are going to be taken against them? You know, we need all of this out in the open as quickly as possible, because otherwise it's the same old Labour, same old anti-Semitism within the left in this country, and you know, it shows that Labour hasn't changed at all.
In other news now, the parents of 2 girls killed in the Southport knife attack say they're looking for light in the darkness. Speaking to the Sunday Times, 7-year-old Elsie Stancoom and 6-year-old BB King's families remembered their daughters as confident, happy and intelligent. They opened up about their children's funerals and the support of their communities in the months since that horrendous attack. Alice da Silva Aguirre also lost her life on that day. It's being reported Donald Trump has confirmed that he's talked to Vladimir Putin on the phone to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. According to the Telegraph newspaper, the US president said that he believes the Russian leader does care about the number of people being killed. Mr. Trump told the New York Post Putin wants to see people stop dying. In the interview, which the newspaper said took place on board Air Force One on Friday, Mr. Trump said that he better not say when asked how many times the two leaders have spoken, but he did confirm they maintain a good relationship. And warnings are continuing today over the potentially deadly cold snap hitting the UK. The Met Office says temperatures could plunge to -7 degrees in parts of the country, with areas set to be hit by snow and ice. The UK Health Security Agency issued yellow cold health alerts for the North East, North West, Yorkshire and the Humber and the South East, which is in place until Tuesday. It means that vulnerable people, including the elderly or people with serious health conditions, may be at an increased risk due to plunging temperatures. And Friends star David Schwimmer has called on ex-owner Elon Musk to remove Kanye West from the platform. It comes after West appeared to write a barrage of posts on his social media account, making offensive comments, including about Jewish people, and appearing to mock domestic violence. The actor, Mr. Schwimmer, took to Instagram to urge Musk to remove West from X because of his hate-filled, ignorant bile. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Now it's back to Dawn.
Thank you very much, Sophia. Let's get straight into today's stories, shall we? Now, Sir Keir Starmer has sacked Health Minister Andrew Gwynne after comments that he reportedly made on a WhatsApp group and that had been published by the Mail on Sunday today. The messages were reportedly filled with anti-Semitic comments and abusive jokes, including one exchange which focused on one of his elderly constituents dying. In response, the Labour Party have said swift action will be taken if individuals are found to have breached the high standards expected of them as Labour Party members. So what we thought we'd do with this story, which is, I mean, this MP minister, not just an MP, a minister, manages to be sexist, racist and ageist all in one go, all in this WhatsApp group. But the one thing I thought we should do is talk to somebody who would be affected by the comments that an elected member of Parliament, a minister, has said, rather than a politician. So joining me now is one of our GB viewers who is also a pensioner, Sue Ashcombe-Hurt. Sue, lovely to see you. Thank you very much for joining me today. I really appreciate your time. Sue, this is a fairly horrible story. I mean, politicians, we're not surprised that they have the morals of alley cats these days, some of them. But this was particularly hurtful, what he said about pensioners. One of his constituents was complaining about, or mentioning having her bins collected. And he basically implied, oh, shut up and die. What do you make of what you've heard from this?
It shows that not only have the Labour Party got a contempt for old people, but they're also racist and misogynistic and anti-Semitic too. Starmer hasn't got rid of his anti-Semitism. He's just shoved it underground. You know, I hate to tell Mr. whatever his name was, Gwynne.
Andrew Gwynne.
Yeah. I'm 73. I'm older than the lady he was hoping would die. And the ladies in my family have got a habit of living over 90, so he's not going to get his wish very often, is he?
Well, good for you, Sue. I mean, it's that fighting spirit that I think this Labour government have underestimated. I mean, how do you feel? I don't know which way you vote, and I'm not going to be as impolite. You can tell me if you want. But how do you feel about the way the older generation are being treated by this government?
Well, I'm a Conservative. I've been a Conservative since I got the vote, and I'll vote Conservative until I die. I think that they're treating the elderly and the farmers and others, students as well, everybody actually. But, you know, they started on the pensioners first, taking away something that could mean the difference between life and death to them. And yet they don't seem concerned about that. In fact, some of them are hoping they'll die because that'll be a few more pensions saved, or a few more NHS appointments saved, or, you know, stuff like that. It's sickening, absolutely sickening.
I find it so sad.
Sorry.
I was going to say, Sue, I find it so sad that people of your generation, my mum's, you know, in a similar age group, feel that, you know, you've worked hard all your life, you contributed all your life, you know, you're responsible for so many things that are good about this country, and that you're being treated like this towards the end of your lives.
Well, I mean, I worked until last year, and when I filled in the HMRC assessment this year, I actually wrote on it that for the next few years my income will be very low because I'm not going to work just enough probably for a bit of pin money, because I am not going to give my money to this Labour government who will just waste it. So I'm just warning them, they're not getting any income off me this next 4 years.
With the heating allowance, has it affected you or any of your friends personally?
Well, the heating allowance has affected me because I would have got the £300. As I say, I keep my house around between 12 and 15 degrees. And I go to bed sort of quite early because it's warm in bed and I can watch GBNews from there just as well as I can watch it from downstairs. So, you know, you save heating, you save lighting and everything else. And I get up a bit later than I would normally do. When summer comes, you know, when spring comes and all this cold's gone, I'll probably get up early. But, you know, you just cut your cloth, you know, according to what comes in, don't you? Well, our generation do.
Are you surprised at how you and your generation are being treated?
Yes, especially from a Labour government. You would think that the Labour government treat elderly people better so that they can crow at the blinking Tories, wouldn't you? Because, you know, they can always say, we treat them a lot better than you, but now the Tories have got a right handle on it and reform. That, you know, they would treat the pensioners a hell of a lot better than Labour do. They're supposed to be the party of the working class. I don't think they know where working class people are anymore. They're just the party of the, you know, the woke elite in London, basically. They don't even cater for people that are outside the M25.
And Sue, just finally, if Keir Starmer was in that room with you now, what would you say to him?
I don't know whether I can tell you on actually on screen. I would just say that I don't know how he sleeps at night. I don't know how he can look himself in the mirror, and I don't know how he can sit there and repeat the same rubbish every day, which everybody in this country knows is not true. They just tell lie after lie after lie after lie.
Sue, thank you so much for joining us and being so honest. I really appreciate your time. That's Sue Ashcombe-Hurt from Sandbach, Cheshire. Thank you very much. Carry on watching GB News and keep warm. Thank you very much, Sue, for joining us. OK, well, harsh words there, but understandable. I mean, you've got to talk to my mum and many of her friends, and I'm sure many of you out there, if you've got elderly relatives, or you are in that, but in Sue's boat yourself, you feel the same. It's like, what have we done to deserve this? We've worked hard all our lives. Let's see what our panel make of this. I've still got Nigel Nelson and Claire Pearsall with me. So I'm going to go to the more senior member of the panel on this one. I think I'm OK to say that. That's you, Nigel. Nigel, I mean, Sue was being very honest there, but lots of people are angry, especially when you get idiots like our health minister, the irony, Andrew Gwynne, talking about wishing elderly voters were dead.
Yes, well, I mean, that his remarks were totally unacceptable. There's no way you can defend them. Even Andrew Gwynne himself has not defended them when he apologised. He's admitted saying the things he did say. And Keir Starmer was absolutely right to sack him on the spot. So I think that you know, is Andrew Gwynne being stupid? Probably his career is over now in politics. That's the right outcome here. Yeah. On the more general front, on pensioners, no, I was against Keir Starmer getting rid of the winter fuel allowance. My own feeling was that rich pensioners shouldn't get it, but you could have taken it away from them by taxing it rather than actually removing it the way that they've done, except for the very poorest. So I think they have been treated badly, but there's also a wider issue where successive governments have ignored the fact we have an ageing population. So we've known this was going to happen for about 50 years. They didn't do anything about it because they were worried about losing votes. So you could have raised the pension age really gradually, monthly years, like that. You could have prepared the NHS to deal with an ageing population. That didn't happen. Suddenly we all panicked, and so you raise the pension age really quickly, disadvantage a load of women.
Waspy women, yeah,
that's
absolutely.
Right,
We've spoken to them many times.
And we're now facing a situation where probably the triple lock eventually will have to go.
Yes, it's not like anyone didn't see this coming. But, I mean, Andrew Gwynne, Claire, I mean, it wasn't just being ageist, which is the politest way of putting wishing your voters dead, but also managed to be sexist and racist and anti-Semitic. I mean, this is a minister on a WhatsApp group. What on earth is he thinking?
Well, he wasn't thinking, and I think that's half the problem, is that he just assumed he was in a safe group of people. He could say what he liked.
With other councillors, and we believe another Labour MP.
Absolutely. That is the allegation, that there is another MP on that group. So I think we need to find out who that is and why they seemingly haven't called out that level of behaviour. Likewise with elected councillors. Why were they not calling out the bad behaviour of Andrew Gwynne? Because anybody that writes down those kind of sentiments, and it wasn't just a one-off comment. No. There were many comments. So why didn't they say, look, actually, no, that's not acceptable, we shouldn't do that, especially when it comes to racism, anti-Semitism, that should be called out by the people around you. So I think that he didn't think he was, as Nigel said, stupid. And it's leaked. It's unsurprising, but I think we need to look at who else is in that group of people and what repercussions it's going to have for them. But if that is the attitude of the Labour Party, with a senior minister having those kind of thoughts, does beg the question, what else is being thought at the top levels of the party?
It really does beg that question. I mean, Andrew Gwynne has been in politics since 1996. He's not exactly an innocent newbie.
I mean, years.
Yeah.
And certainly, I mean, I know him. He's never expressed any of these sentiments when I've talked to him. But the fact that he's actually written them down in a WhatsApp group, yes, stupid, and B, unacceptable, as we've said. I'm not sure you can actually sort of tar the entire Labour Party with the mistakes of one person.
But doesn't the Labour Party have a bit of a history with anti-Semitism?
It does, and that's why Keir Starmer has actually rooted it out of the party since the Jeremy Corbyn days.
Clearly not.
Well, I mean, within 30 minutes of us seeing that story last night, Andrew Gwynne had been fired as a minister and suspended from the Labour Party. So the Prime Minister couldn't really have acted more quickly than he did last night.
I'm not suggesting he didn't act quickly. I'm just suggesting that there is this level of belief within parts of the Labour Party that anti-Semitism was absolutely fine. And that doesn't seem to go away when you've got somebody who is a senior minister putting those thoughts on a WhatsApp group, so they're therefore publishing them. And I was always told this from the minute I joined politics, way sort of 20-something years ago that I've been in the House of Commons, is that do not publish anything, whether it be an email, we didn't have social media at the time, or a memo or a letter that you wouldn't be happy to see on the front page of the Mail on Sunday. That's the rule that I've lived by from that point onwards. And I think it's true, and he seemed to have forgotten that by publishing some pretty appalling thoughts, wishing somebody dead. I mean, come on, don't put that...
No, that's what I mean, but it's an individual who has made this mistake. That the danger is, as the Tories have tried to do, your lot, try to tar the entire Labour Party with the same brush as of Andrew Gwynne. And that's just not... That's not right. There's one person has done that. He has paid the price for that quite rightly.
But nobody on that WhatsApp group has seemingly called that behaviour out. So therefore, it would seem that to those people, perfectly acceptable for those comments, and they laughed at them if the screenshots that we have seen are to be believed.
Yeah, and I'm sure that all that will come out too, and that other people will have a problem.
So it's not just the actions of one person. It seems to be
a small group in this constituency on a WhatsApp group who have behaved really badly, and all we know at the moment is that one person has behaved really badly, Andrew Gwynne, and he's been fired for it.
But the issue here is the silence of other Labour councillors and a Labour MP on this group, group. I mean, to do nothing is often the worst thing you can do.
Yes, I agree with you. And I mean, and this story's got a bit more time to run so we can find that out. And yes, if other people have made remarks, if other people have just remained silent while those remarks were being made, they are all culpable. But I think that to try and extend that to an entire political party is stretching it. We're dealing with Andrew Gwynne and we're dealing with a very small group of people on a WhatsApp.
But it's not the only scandal, if you like, with corruption and sleaze that the Labour Party have had recently, is it, Claire?
No, it really isn't. We only have to think back to last summer, not very many months ago, with Freebie Gate, glasses, suits, nice pair of Wellingtons.
Which, you know, I disagree with.
Yeah, absolutely. But it just seems that they didn't understand that you can't poke the Conservative Party for taking tickets to events or receiving flights for somebody and then do it yourself, but it's absolutely fine because you're the Labour Party. I don't think they've quite understood that the scrutiny that they're going to get is what is to be expected
I agree with you.
in
I agree with you. That
power.
was unacceptable behaviour and they should have known better.
Yes, and we're not going to mention voice coaches. No.
And you should have known better about that too.
OK, now, in response, Andrew Gwynne took to social media and wrote the following: I deeply regret my badly misjudged comments and apologise for any offence I've caused. I've served the Labour Party all my life and it was a huge honour to be appointed Minister by Keir Starmer. I entirely understand the decisions the PM and the party have taken and, while very sad to have been suspended, will support them in any way I can. What do you make of this one? gbnews.com/your say. I'm Dawn Neeson and there's GB News and there's loads more coming up on today's show, including how much is really being spent on the Prime Minister's globe-trotting. All of that and much more to come. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you very soon.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Feathers McGraw, Wallace and Gromit's their villain, has become an unlikely hit at UK tattoo parlours. He's menacing.
He is, yeah.
He's,
and in fact, he doesn't speak and he's got this glove on top of his head trying to convince us he's a chicken or something.
And that is a real tattoo that someone has decided to have there. What do you two think about tattoos? Are they express themselves? Or?
I love it. So I've basically got Dr. King.
There we go.
Oh, there he goes.
Nice.
He's showing us.
If you can't fly, run.
No.
It's probably slightly more meaningful than having the villainous England.
Oh, come on, Trey, you won't get Feathers McGraw.
Maybe not. It's kind of got that kind of... You know when you go abroad and you're B4, Magaluf, and you... Tenerife, and you get a quick tattoo. It's looking like that,
chest,
or like a pirate or something. It's kind of got that vibe, not for me. However, I do get the sentimentality around it. You know, some people have grown up on Wallace and Gromit and they love it and it has meaning. And he is a well-written character, so I get it.
Brilliant, isn't it?
I prefer my tattoos a bit more meaningful.
I feel like as well there's a surge in it. Lots of people have had it, but then is it then going to become unpopular because of it? And how many people regret the tattoos? Apparently, not just 14% of people regret tattoos.
Wow.
See, I think that's where the meaningful side comes into it. I've got a couple of meaningful tattoos, and I know I will never get bored of them. Not one on my wrist, one on my ankle. They're not hidden, but I think because they mean something to me, I'll never get bored.
Yes, exactly. I think that's important. If you're gonna, a tattoo's for life, isn't it?
That's the thing.
It's got to mean
I haven't got
something.
Have you not?
I'll be indecisive. I think I'll get something.
I want to keep on my body forever.
If I had about 6 or 7 pints and then stumbled into a tattoo parlour,
you'd come out with
something chaotic. A disaster could happen. Then I walk out. Oh no, I've got this for the rest of my life.
You might become addicted.
Well, let's hope not.
Some people do.
GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Hi, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and my show is your opportunity to cut through all the noise and dive in headfirst to some robust debates. Ideas clash.
Situation,
Because you're deliberately avoiding my point. Nothing's held back.
And if you think this is the end of it, wait for more.
And we do not shy away from the difficult stuff. Sometimes I want to shake people and say, if only you understood. So join me on Jubes & Co. weeknights at 6 p.m, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Nana Akua. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Earlier on GB News.
The Prime Minister has sacked one of his health ministers, Andrew Gwynne, over offensive comments that he's reported to have made in a WhatsApp group.
We have our monthly ministerial scandal, and Andrew Gwynne seems to have provided this month's.
President Trump has wasted no time in getting straight to work, signing a swathe of executive orders.
Our team has printed off a full... This is how many there are. You can't quite... I mean, it's a whole...
It's a book.
It's a whole booklet.
Felicity were rescued from a slaughterhouse and Josette was from a horrific meat market. No to dog meat, they're going and they are on the ground in Newlyn saving dogs.
From 6, it's GB News Breakfast.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. Thank you very much for joining me on a Sunday afternoon. Hope you're enjoying your Sunday as much as I am with these two delightful people I have, Claire and Nigel, with me. Now, OK, you want to get angry? Yeah, let's get angry, shall we? The bill for Sir Keir Starmer's flights and travel has been revealed by the Mail on Sunday even, reaching an astronomical £700,000 after just 3 months in Downing Street. The Prime Minister's foreign trips cost £161,000 more than Rishi Sunak, Boris Johnson and Liz Truss combined over the equivalent period since 2021. But the question remains, have we been getting a value for his foreign trips? OK, let's see what my wonderful panel make of this one. Claire, seldom hear Keir. It's one of the nicknames he's got, and it does seem to be quite accurate.
Well, this is the man who wanted to be home every Friday night at 6 o'clock for dinner. And he seems to spend an awful lot of his time out of the country. And do you remember the grief he gave Rishi Sunak for using private jets? But it's all right for him to do so. It doesn't really matter.
One private jet.
Doesn't matter.
No, I mean, I think you shouldn't have used it up, but it is one.
Yeah, so don't poke holes at other people and then go and do it yourself. And what about the environmental cost if the Labour Party is supposed to be so green and eco-conscious?
Well, he can't by rowing boat, can he?
Does he need to go on this many trips? I think that's what needs to be looked at. How much value for money are we getting from the Prime Minister attending whatever it is that he's attending? I'm not sure, but I think there's an awful lot to have racked up so soon. He isn't here in the country. We need him to lead the country. That is what he is employed to do. Doesn't seem to be doing it very well, does he?
We also need him to sell the country to other world leaders. And I think that certainly...
How's that going in America?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, at the moment he seems to have a reasonable relationship with Donald Trump, so we'll have to see how that progresses. I can see that there could be fireworks on the way. But when it comes down to a new Prime Minister, the idea of actually travelling to meet other world leaders, to get to know them, a lot of the real politics is done in the margins of summits, not around the table, but when they're having a chat in the corridor, a drink, a post-summit drink, or whatever is the equivalent that they have. So on the basis of that, I don't blame him for actually travelling a fair bit. If in 2 years' time he was spending most of his time out of the country, we might think differently. But certainly for the first 3 months of his premiership, I think that was a good use of his time.
He's travelled abroad on official business more in his first 6 months in power than any of his immediate predecessors, and has spent more time abroad than any PM in the same time frame. I mean, that's going some.
Well, it really is. I mean, he just isn't in the country. You have to sort of wonder what is it he's achieving by being out of the country so much. For a man that wanted to get stuck into the business of government at home, well, he's not doing a very good job of that. Wanted to be home on a Friday night to have dinner with his family, well, that's gone by the wayside. And then you've also got David Lammy. His flights have cost more than £900,000.
But he's the Foreign Secretary. He's meant to be abroad.
But it just adds into that picture. You can't sit there from the opposition benches and squinny at the government of the time, which was the Conservative Party, saying you lot are out of the country, you know, spending all your money on flights, and then to do absolutely more than that when you come into government and not expect anybody to notice. But what is he actually doing? What kind of benefit? You say that he's got to sell the UK to a foreign audience. Well, don't think that's going very well either, unless you're a Chinese company looking to put solar panels all over it.
Without rehashing a solar panel argument...
We've been there. Save that tonight.
It may well be. That is exactly what he's doing. I mean, certainly Rachel Reeves has made a trip to China. That is about trying to get some Chinese trade here. I think it really is...
How well did that go?
Well, we don't know yet. I mean, at the moment, she came back with £600 million worth of trade. We don't know. We don't know what comes down the road. But
they're getting a nice big embassy.
Well, yes, they get a nice big embassy, which obviously we get a fair bit of bunts from that too.
But whether they should have it or not is a whole different debate.
It is, and it is different. It is a different argument. But the idea of being abroad as Prime Minister to talk to other world leaders, I do think that is actually genuinely useful, and it may not have an immediate... You don't come back with a trade deal immediately. It's what you might get in the future by getting to know them.
Quite a lot all of the time, and I'm sure that some of those meetings could have been by Zoom. I really do. I don't think he necessarily needs to leave the country at every opportunity. No, he doesn't, does he? Because you have to have your voice coach pitching up in person.
But a Downing Street source says since taking office in July, the Prime Minister and his cabinet have worked tirelessly to rebuild the diplomatic bridges burnt by the Tories during 14 years of chaos and decline, which have weakened Britain's influence abroad and make us more vulnerable at home.
Well, there you go.
Oh, well, that's all right. At least I think we did quite well on the world stage, don't we? I mean, the Conservative Party can be blamed for many things.
Well, indeed they can. Yeah. I mean, but they were doing the same thing. I mean, Boris Johnson was out of the country an awful lot, and I don't blame him for that.
Not as much.
I don't blame him for that. And just because you have a Prime Minister who, in the first few months, has racked up a bigger bill than somebody else when you start comparing it, I don't think that this is actually one of those major issues that we should be that concerned about.
Of course you don't, because it's your side. If this was the Conservative Party, you'd be pointing the finger, going, you're spending all this money, it's ridiculous. But no, it's the Labour Party. Oh, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it. And that's the whole attitude.
Okay, is hypocrisy a thing with British politics at the moment? We could discuss that one for hours, and that's not even a political point on all sides. I'm Dawn Neeson, this is GB News. Up next, in the biggest game in football tonight, but sadly it's the wrong kind of football. We're talking all things Super Bowl, which is very glitzy and has got a really good half-time show coming up. But first, let's get those news headlines with Sophia Wensler.
Dawn, thank you. Your headlines at 2:32. The Prime Minister has sacked one of his health ministers over offensive comments he's reported to have made in a WhatsApp group. Andrew Gwynne has also been suspended as a member of the Labour Party and has since apologised for what he calls misjudged comments. It follows an expose by the Mail on Sunday claiming Mr Gwynne reportedly made anti-Semitic comments and joked about a pensioner constituent, saying he hoped she died before the next election. It's also alleged that he attacked members of his own party, including making racist slights towards Labour MP Diane Abbott and sexist comments towards Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner. In other news, 5 Thai men held hostage in Gaza for over a year have arrived back in their homeland. There were tears of joy at Bangkok airport as the men reunited with their families and said they feel so grateful. The men, aged 27 to 36, were released by Hamas on the 30th of January as part of a ceasefire deal. It comes a day after they handed over 3 Israeli hostages whose gaunt appearances shocked the world, and Israel freed dozens of Palestinian prisoners. To the US now, where it's being reported Donald Trump has confirmed that he's talked to Vladimir Putin on the phone to discuss ending the war in Ukraine. According to the Telegraph newspaper, the US president said that he believes the Russian leader does care about the number of people being killed. Mr. Trump told the New York Post Putin wants to see people stop dying. In the interview, which the newspaper said took place on board Air Force One on Friday, Mr. Trump said that he better not say when asked how many times he's spoken with the leader, but confirmed they do maintain a good relationship. And train passengers will face significant disruption today as Avanti West Coast managers stage a fresh strike over rest day working. Members of the Rail, Maritime and Transport Union will walk out today, significantly impacting services on one of the UK's busiest rail routes. Avanti West Coast strongly advises passengers to avoid travelling if possible. Meanwhile, a limited service will operate today between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. Those are the latest GB News headlines. Sam Francis will have more for you in half an hour.
For the very latest GB News direct to your smartphone, sign up to News Alerts by scanning the QR code or go to gbnews.com/alerts.
Hello there, welcome to your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. Some of us are still going to be hunting for that sunshine today, though there are a few glimmers for a lucky few of us. We've still got high pressure out towards Scandinavia that is feeding in this easterly wind across the UK, and because it's coming in from the North Sea, it's bringing in a lot of moisture and a lot of clouds. So particularly for eastern regions today, it is going to be widely cloudy, grey, dull and drab, unfortunately, with some outbreaks of rain that will be falling as snow potentially over some higher ground areas. If you are a little bit further towards the west, you've got a greater chance of seeing some sunshine today. So particularly areas of Cornwall, the outer Scilly, potentially parts of Pembrokeshire as well, should see some brightness in there. But for a lot of central eastern areas of England and Wales, that rain will be pushing its way in. But actually for northwestern areas of Scotland, this is where we're going to see some of the brightest skies today. A really nice fine day to come here despite a little bit of a chill in the air. And it is going to be feeling quite cold underneath the cloud, and with the easterly wind starting to pick up in strength later on this afternoon and overnight, that is going to be adding a wind chill factor in there once again. That cloud, though, as it spreads its way in, will reduce the amount of frost for most of us, but particularly for northwestern Scotland, where we hold on to the clearer skies, temperatures will drop off a touch more here. We could get as low as -5, -6 degrees Celsius in the most sheltered rural areas. Maybe some icy stretches around where surfaces are still wet due to all these showers that aren't pushing their way in. And really throughout Monday, it is a very similar picture. Always cloudiest towards the east, those showers turning wintry over higher ground sites, particularly the Pennines tomorrow. But over towards the west, it will be a little bit drier and a little bit brighter as well. Once again, though, northwestern Scotland, the Highlands and the Outer Hebrides seeing the best day overall. Cold for most of us, though, 4 degrees Celsius as our top temperatures, and on that wind chill factor, it's going to be feeling more like freezing. And it's a picture we've got to get used to because it's going to stay that way throughout this week. Enjoy your day. Bye-bye.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Headliners on GB News 11 p.m. every night. It's got 3 top comedians going through the next day's newspapers so you don't have to read them, which is great.
That's a good point. He's lying. I mean, maybe he's not lying.
That's Headliners every night from 11 p.m. and 5 a.m. as well on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back. Now, there's plenty more coming up on today's show. But before I tell you what we've got in store, you're in for a real treat because Nana is up at 3 o'clock and she's got a very special show for you today. Take it away, Nana.
Well, yes, I've got the exclusive with Hannah Ingram Moore. That will be just after 5 o'clock, where I speak to Hannah and I find out how all of this has taken a toll on her family, and also the story from her perspective. Obviously, it'll be a very balanced programme and leave you to decide what you think and your opinion of it. So I'm looking forward to bringing you that. We went to their house, we spoke to the family members, and I hope that it's something that you'll stay tuned for. Plus, we'll go live to Reform UK's conference in Wiltshire. We'll have Zia Youssef, and then we will have Nigel Farage. These speeches will be brought to you live. So lots to do on the show today.
A real packed show and a great exclusive. You don't want to miss it. I've seen snippets of that. It's a really good interview. Thank you, Nana. That's coming up at 3 o'clock. OK, now, it's the biggest night in American sport as Super Bowl 59 takes centre stage across all 50 states later on this evening. The Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles collide in New Orleans, a city that's seen a tragedy recently, hasn't it? It's just a rematch of Super Bowl 52 with the biggest prize in the NFL on the line. Now, the reason we're talking about it is because millions of us are planning on staying up, because it's overnight, obviously, for the action and having Super Bowl parties. These are an increasing thing in this country. And it'll go on to the early hours of Monday morning, so probably a few people calling in sick tomorrow, not us, obviously. Rapper Kendrick Lamar, fresh off his Grammy win for Song of the Year, also takes the field for the star-studded halftime show, which in my mind is what this is all about. So joining me now is sports broadcaster Chris Scudder. Chris, thank you very much for joining us this afternoon. Now, I know very, very little, that much, about the actual sport, but the Super Bowl seems to be all about the entertainment, the halftime, the amount of advertisers pay for getting a slot there. Tell us more.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's not cheap to advertise on the Super Bowl. I mean, the reason for that is there's about 125 million Americans and countless hundreds of millions around the world watching it as well. You know, which, let's face it, you know, people don't play American football really to any great level outside of the country. But you're right. The reason people watch it is because of the razzmatazz, and the Americans are absolute masters of marketing their product. You know, a lot of people don't even know the rules in their own country, but they'll watch it for the halftime show. I think they're saying something like there are 10 adverts going to be shown tonight, which will have all cost more than £6 million each.
Wow.
I think David Beckham's going to be in one of them for a well-known lager beer, playing himself, as far as I can understand. You know, so it's all about the big names and all the rest of it. And you remember, you know, the Kansas City Chiefs are playing tonight. One of their star players is Travis Kelce, who just happens to be the other half of Taylor Swift. There's even rumours that there's going to be an engagement announced soon, and they're going to be married and all the rest of it. So she'll be there tonight, of course, following her man. And the halftime show is amazing, as it always is. You know, if you can make a career out of starring as the musical performer at halftime. Kendrick Lamar, the rapper's done it before. He's having a feud at the moment. There he is. He's having a feud with the Canadian rapper Drake. That song you mentioned, Drake is not happy about it because it kind of disses him. There's talk of defamation and all the rest of it. And is Kendrick Lamar, has he got the bottle or the legal bottle to sing that to hundreds of millions tonight? Either way, it'll be great, I'm sure, because he was pretty good at Glastonbury the other year. A lot of people don't understand rap, maybe, but he is a very futuristic performer. It's the music of the age, a great art form. I think that's the shot from Glastonbury, actually. And so he'll be the star at half-time, yeah.
This is a real big deal to get this halftime gig, isn't it? I mean, I think was it LaToya Jackson who infamously had a wardrobe malfunction and made her more famous than anything else? Was it Janet or LaToya?
Yeah,
one of the Jacksons.
I think it was Janet. I think it was Janet, wasn't it? Yeah, it's massive. You're right. I mean, that many people watch it, not for the sport, just to see what goes on at half-time. And, you know, the fact that it costs so much to advertise, you've got massive amounts of pairs of eyes. And you're dead right about what's happening in the UK. You know, the Super Bowl is... we talk about globalization of the Premier League and playing matches abroad and all the rows that go about that. But America's so far ahead, isn't it? They've been playing in London for years, competitive matches. There's going to be one in Ireland next year. They're going to Melbourne, Australia. They're going to Spain as well. They played one in Brazil at the start of this current season. So it's, you know, the kind of globalization. Donald Trump will be loving that. Of course, he's going to be the first sitting president to ever attend tonight. So, you know, he'll be hoping the cameras are on him. He does like his sport. He likes his football as well. He's been backing the Football World Cup. And if you notice, Gianni Infantino was at his in picture, right behind him at the inauguration. I think that's because Barron is an Arsenal fan, I think, something like that. We've all got crosses to bear.
We don't talk about that.
But I mean, that's what it's all about. They know that it's even though we don't really understand the sport the way they do, it's the show, and the Americans are masters at doing that.
And Chris, finally, obviously politically it is important because it is in New Orleans, isn't it, where we saw that horrific terror attack in Bourbon Street, just a few months ago?
Yeah, listen, the security will be massive. I have been inside the Superdome. They've had it before there as well. But listen, I don't think, especially with the president being there, anything untoward will happen tonight. But everyone just wants to be there, be part of the party. All the restaurants. I think Taylor Swift was spotted in one of the restaurants in town the other night, behind a private screen with a couple of the girls from Haim, Californian pop band, as well. So it's all about being seen. And Beckham's there. I think Louis Tomlinson from One Direction is there. He was at one of the pre Super Bowl parties the other night. It's all everybody wants to just be around. And the politicians get involved as well. It's just it's an encapsulation of what America is. They project themselves on the world so well, and they are brilliant at marketing, which I think augurs well for the World Cup in a couple of years as well.
Absolutely.
Next year, they will sell it brilliantly too.
Chris, I never knew you were such a good showbiz journalist as well. Thank you very much for joining us. That's Chris Scudder, who is a brilliant sports broadcaster as well as showbiz. Thank you very much, Chris. OK, now, if you are in search of some winter sun, by the way, want to get away from these grey skies, we've got the forecast for some of those top European holiday destinations for you.
I hope it doesn't rain.
Don't worry about it.
It'll spoil our holiday.
Relax, we're totally covered.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
You may well be thinking of escaping the cloudy skies of the UK and heading to the Mediterranean, though it is rather mixed out there at the moment. There are some heavy showers and thunderstorms across parts of Malta and Sicily, though recent snowfall across the Alps should hopefully help with some skiing conditions. Perhaps the most settled conditions across parts of southern Iberia, Portugal and Spain, though there is some showery rain pushing into parts of Madeira as well. Generally, it is going to be the west that holds on to the most settled conditions during this week as well.
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors GB News Travel Destinations Forecast.
Right, OK, we've got some real sexy stuff coming up for you now. We are going to talk all things Valentine's. It's just around the corner, and have you got any big romantic plans for the day? Seeing as I've got a very happily married couple with me, kind of, we'll be chatting all things love. That's coming up very soon, and you don't want to miss it. This is GB News, Britain's news channel. We'll see you very soon.
I'm Stephen Dixon, and thanks for joining us on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akweer, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun. No, he didn't say that, Dave. I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
GB News Breakfast, every day from 6 a.m.
Underestimate what you did, because to do it in their backyard as well, I bet they weren't happy about it, were they, Brad?
No, definitely not. Well, it makes it all the more sweeter. So they're usually pretty dominant in a two-man event, but four-man's usually where we can challenge them. And yeah, we managed to do it yesterday and put down 2 solid runs. And yeah, so yeah, funding was a big issue for us in the last quad, but because of our results recently, we've picked up a lot more funding from UK Sport, so we're well funded now. And but yeah, the Bob is in the back of the van behind us, so we're driving it down to St Maritz as we speak. So yeah, that's how it all works in the background in bobsleigh.
Brad, you're the pilot, correct? So you're up front.
Yeah.
Now, what happens? I always wonder, because I remember seeing John Noakes on. Do you remember John Noakes on Blue Peter when he fell out of the bob and he ended up showing the back of his backside on TV because he had a big scar on there? What? So you've got the brake man. You're at the front. So where are you then, Aaron? Are you what number are you?
So I'm number 3. Yeah.
Right. So what do you do there? Is it just a matter of it's the running power is what it's all about to get off to a good start, and then you can sit and enjoy the ride?
Yeah, that's it. So for number 2 and myself, number 3, it's all about getting that bob off the line and then just zipping it up to as high a speed as we can, basically. Getting in, staying low, having good aerodynamics and staying still and let Brad do the work. Yeah, it's definitely not a comfortable position for them because we're bending them and twisting them into quite an uncomfortable position to get as aerodynamic as possible. And when you've got 6 times G's pushing you through that is not Yeah, not
definitely
fun.
stiff back this morning, that's for sure.
Because I'm just thinking where me and Eamon would sit. Is it 2 and 3, or would he go at number 4? What do you fancy?
I would be too frightened to do that.
GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Hello, welcome back to the weekend with me, Dawn Neeson. I hope you're having a cracking Sunday out there, and I hope you're braced for the rest of the week, because it's sexy week, isn't it? 5 days away from Valentine's Day. But are you ready for a good dose of love? Well, I've got the perfect panel for this, haven't I? I've got Nigel Nelson and Claire Pearsall here, who are married, which means obviously there's no sex involved anymore. Nigel, Valentine's, are you a natural romantic? Are you going to whisk Claire off her feet and take her somewhere lovely?
Well, first of all, Claire and myself will do breakfast here before we go whisking off.
Ooh, but you got a bit of whisking involved?
Well, according to your viewers and listeners, it seems that what I should be getting for Valentine's Day is 2 tickets for Relate. So you look forward to that one.
Yeah, we are starting marriage guidance here, so you're in the right place, by the way. No, but I mean, we're asking this because there's a brilliant poll out by Moonpig. They do all those really fancy cards. That are basically the most romantic place in the country, by the way. Can you guess? Do you guess where the most romantic place in the country actually is?
No, I don't know.
Most romantic city.
Let's go Birmingham.
Birmingham?
Well, it begins with...
I'd have gone to Brighton, I would have thought, for the most romantic place.
Well, it depends what sort of romance you're after, Nigel Nelson. Well, actually, the answer is Bristol.
Oh,
is the most romantic place in the country. And 70, they tell each other they love each other more. A whopping 40% of them show affection on a daily basis.
Oh, that's lovely.
Which is really nice, isn't it? Yeah. OK, and 60%, 60% of us compliment our other halves every day.
I do compliment Nigel a lot.
We do keep in touch. If we're not together, we do keep in touch on WhatsApp with proper messages, by the way.
Yes.
We do keep in touch on WhatsApp through the day.
Yeah. But apart from that, I was going to get to the main point of that particular one, is in the east of England. You used to kind of live to the east of England, don't you, really?
The southeast of England.
Yeah, that's one of the least romantic places.
Excellent. No nonsense people of Kent.
Yeah. But
we'll perk it up.
Ooh, you're on a promise, love, there. But the real star of the show, right, Valentine's cards. How many people do you think actually still send Valentine's cards to each other?
I'd have thought pretty much everybody.
Oh, no, I don't think so anymore. I think this is all sort of messages and Snapchats and...
It is for Gen Z. Gen Z think it's perfectly acceptable to send a love heart emoji. And that's done.
And that's it? Mm-hmm. No, it's not acceptable. No, I mean, Valentine's cards are really important, but we've never missed a year sending Valentine's cards to each other.
Yeah, we always do.
Oh, that's really lovely. Yeah. Well, you're actually not alone, because 64% of Brits say we send cards to one another still, which is actually really nice.
That's lovely.
And we are a pretty romantic bunch altogether. Over half of us, excuse me, my voice is down, 52% of us celebrate actually Valentine's Day, which is quite nice.
It is. I think that's lovely. I mean, we're doing breakfast here. I've then got to drive and pick up my son, so it's not quite a traditional day. But we'll be home together, so we'll actually have something nice for dinner.
But how often do we say "I love you"? Okay, on average, the average couple say "I love you" to each other. How many times a week do you reckon?
Oh, it's got to be 20, 30 times.
OK, Nigel?
I'd have gone the same, yeah, but then we're basing it on each other, aren't we?
Yeah, you are, actually, yeah. I'm going to base it on my husband. Well, the answer is none. No, sorry, darling, it's not. No, on average, we say I love you 8 times a week. Which is quite high. It's,
well, it's every day anyway, isn't it?
Pretty much, and twice on Sundays. Any case, thank you very much, Claire and Nigel, and wishing you a very happy Valentine's Day. And thank you out there for joining me. But you really don't want to go anywhere because Nana's got a very loved-up show coming next with a great exclusive. You don't want to miss it. So thank you for your company. Really appreciate it. Have a lovely rest of your Sunday. I'll see you tomorrow for breakfast. Lucky you. But first, let's have a look at the weather. Enjoy the rest of your day.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello there, good afternoon. This is your latest GB News weather updates provided by the Met Office. We are in a quite stagnant weather situation at the moment. High pressure that has set itself up across Scandinavia is essentially acting as a blocking system and leading to a very similar weather pattern day in, day out at the moment. It's an easterly wind that set itself up, and that is providing a lot of moisture and a lot of cloud feeding in from the North Sea, with some outbreaks of rain and showers around as well. Some wintry flakes falling over higher ground routes, particularly the Pennines and the Grampians. If you are further towards the west, there'll be a few clearer spells this evening and overnight, particularly for northwestern Scotland, where it will turn quite chilly, maybe as low as -5, -6 degrees Celsius, but underneath the cloud elsewhere, temperatures will be holding up more around 3 to 4 degrees Celsius. Despite that very chilly start across northwestern Scotland on Monday, though, it is here where we're going to see the most lengthy spells of sunshine right throughout the day. Once again, for the Highlands, the Outer Hebrides, parts of Argyll and Bute, it is going to be quite a...
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Don't miss your chance to be one of 2 big winners in our latest Great British giveaway, as we have 2 prize bundles that have to be won. First, you'll win a totally tax-free £10,000 in cash to spend however you like. You'll also receive the very latest iPhone 16, and we'll send you on a shopping spree with £500 to spend in your favourite store. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard